My name is Rick Montano. I'm a designer, creator, artist. Man, all of the above. I really don't like to have one title. I think overall artist is probably the best way to describe myself. So what's Barely Broke is a question I get a lot. Barely Broke to me is where I was at when I started the brand. You know, I was working, you know, I was making a little bit of money, but I wasn't completely broke. You know, I wasn't on the street. I wasn't, you know, I had a roof over my head. I was making a little bit of money. And, you know, I used all my finances basically to start this brand. To me, Barely Broke is basically just the struggle that I felt like it was the best way to put how I was feeling at the moment. You know, the way I looked at it from a personal story was just like I was making a little bit and I was just investing it. And you know, and it was just a hustle, and that's what Barely Broke means. It basically just means hustle. You know, I originally got the idea from a Tupac song, and it's called Ambitions as a Rider. It's one of my favorite Tupac songs. And I heard him say that, and he says in the song, he says, equipped with money in the bins cause I'm barely broke. And you know, he said it in a more lavish way to where, you know, he was making money. But for me, I took it as a different way. I took it as like, man, I'm grinding, but I feel barely broke too. And I think just those words just made a lot of sense. I put it on a t-shirt, and you know, people loved it. People felt they related to it. They felt like it was something that they was feeling as well. You know, everybody I told that to, you know, like smiled, and they just loved the idea of it. And a lot of people felt that way also. So I just ran with it, you know, and that just, I never looked back. I took that name, you know, I trademarked it, I registered it, and then from there, you know, we just started making a lot of concepts within it. And like I said, it started turning into a political brand, but honestly, the Barely Broke is just my life. You know, whether it be politics, whether it be, you know, how I'm feeling at the moment, my religious views, Barely Broke is really just me. It's my life, my story. You know, I'm telling y'all like my vision, my experiences all through clothes and through fashion, through art. My mother inspires me. She inspired me pretty much to be a designer. She's probably one of the most creative people I ever met. Just growing up, she was able to do everything. She was able to paint, she was able to make clothes, she was able to sew. So, you know, I looked at her for inspiration. She also taught me all these traits. So she's one of the reasons, but the other reason is pretty much just, I feel like the biggest inspiration to me starting a brand and just being a designer is immigrants. I think the struggle and the grind of an immigrant coming from another country, not knowing the language, having to learn, starting from the bottom, I think that's probably one of the most inspirational things. And I think that's where I pull most of my inspiration from my brand. And I think that's what inspired a lot of my collections. So I really think between my mother, my family, and just the whole immigrant story is what inspired me to do design and be a creative. Another inspiration that I have for my brand and my creativeness is political activists like Cesar Chavez, Huey Newton from the Black Panthers. I think these people have inspired me a lot to be just an independent person, really stand up for my vision, really do it tastefully, and really do it within the streets, and really do it in a grassroots movement. I think one of the most powerful messages within the brand is promoting unity. I think promoting messages that are inspiring, messages that are progressive, is something that, you know, Barely Broke and the brand does really well. I think overall, just being a first generation child is probably the most powerful message within the brand. I feel like that's the story of a lot of my peers, and I try to tell their stories as well as mine. And I think all those messages combined make what the brand is. And I think that's very powerful to tell this story. The most important topics that I speak on within the brand is the Born of an Immigrant concept. I think, that came to life from me and a lot of my friends growing up and talking about how it doesn't really get represented in fashion. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like a underground topic, and it doesn't get, there's no art attached. There's art attached to it, but there's no like fashion line strictly attached to it. So Born of an Immigrant happened in 2014, and like I said, it happened because it was an open market, it was an open lane, and I thought, why not Barely Broke be the brand that speaks on this topic, speaks on the children of immigrants, and do it in a tasteful way. Being original, I think, is one of the most important things when it comes to being a brand or being an artist. I feel like the originality is really what solidifies yourself, what really gives you like legacy. If you start a brand, if you start anything, I feel like the #1 goal should be to be original. You know what I mean? A lot of people be like, well, originality is dead, like there's no originality or nothing's original. But I feel like if you dig deep, there's always something you can find that's, that could be original in its own sense. A lot of people draw too much to inspiration. I think they look too much into like the past, look at other designers or look at other artists and try to emulate their style, or try to like, I think they study those artists so much they subconsciously start creating like they do. So I think it's very important to kind of, get lost in your mind and really just try to figure out ways to just not be influenced by other things. Like, sometimes it's good not to do any research. You know what I'm saying? Like, sometimes it's good to just do something and then later find out if it's been done or not, so it comes from a genuine place. I see it a lot in fashion schools, or you always have to study an artist and stuff, and then later on I started seeing that their art kind of looks like somebody else's art, and that's just all subconscious things. And I feel like it's really important to try to be original as much as possible when you're creating or developing something. I think that's what brings legacy.